Everybody, what I want to do in this video is go over a couple of things. First of all, there have been a couple of videos posted for the class, one on William Clifford, one on William James. The William James one is up on YouTube, but I haven't posted a link to it on Blackboard yet. Granted, so I know some of you have been watching it already. That's what I want you to do at this point. My views on the informative aspect of this class. Originally I wanted to just put up lectures from previous semesters, and I just think that's too much to do right now. We've all got a lot going on. If anyone really wants, 10 hours more of content, I can put it up there if you really want. But I didn't want to hold you responsible for it because I know we've all got a lot of things going on right now. My understanding is that some classes are doing almost more work in this environment, and I just don't think it's appropriate right now. It's not that I want to do the bare minimum, far from it. I want to do what I think is appropriate, and I think streamlining things at this point is entirely appropriate. So that's why I've done the stuff on Clifford. I've done the stuff on James. I'm going to put up some more stuff in the next couple of days on notions of truthiness, fake news, alternative facts, and how those things correspond to engineering ethics. Granted, we have a lot of analogs with medical ethics and also business ethics, taxation ethics. In a lot of ways, all these things are kind of syncing up in the world around us right now. But I wanted to streamline the amount of content that you had to absorb in a lecture-like way, especially when we don't have the same kind of dynamic format. I know some professors are doing Zoom lectures where everybody has to log in at the same time. We spend time together. I don't think that's helpful. I think that it actually just stresses everyone out. Really, that's my own ethical view on that, is that that's too much right now. So I'm going to focus on the things that you need to do. Now, to that end, I've been receiving a lot of emails about the case study report and analysis, which is due on the 24th, which last time we talked about it, it was the 3rd of March, if you can believe that. I know some of you weren't there. You were there on the 5th for the midterm exam, but you may not have been there for the 3rd. So I know some of you missed that seminar, and so there's some stuff you might not know. And for those of you who were there, it was like a month and a half ago. So what I want to do here is briefly go over the content of that and hopefully streamline that for you. Most of you who, if you've asked me a question via email, I've answered it via email, at least in brief. Some of you I told this was coming. So what I want to do here is do a truncated version of what I did on March 3rd and go over that. So some of this will be familiar to you. Those of you who were there on the 3rd, for some of you this will be new, and for some of you this will be a refresher. So like I said, I want to go through this quickly. What are the resources that you have? So first of all, if you go to assignments and you go to the case study report and analysis, this is what pops up. And some of this I have updated today, or rather yesterday, April 15th, tax day, or the original tax day. It's not now. The first thing you have is the paper formatting exemplar. When you open this, what this looks like a dynamic for an essay. Now let me be clear. What you're doing for this class, even if you're having for other classes, this is not an essay. What you're doing is you're basically filling in the case study report and analysis rubric. Now in previous semesters when I've done this class, they had to do kind of a case study report and a separate analysis, which was more of a augmentation of the material that was going on in the second half of the report, which was an augmented analysis. As I said on the 3rd, and if that wasn't clear to you then, or if you weren't there on the 3rd, you are not doing that now. That was the original format of this in previous versions of this course. You're not doing that. And so I want to show you exactly what you're doing. But what's going on in the paper formatting exemplar, you don't need to worry about this cover page. You're not going to have to do a cover page. If you do one, I'm not going to take points off for it. All this is in the right column under comments, and if comments don't show up, what you do is you go to review. It's probably not showing you this on your tab, and you go to show comments. Like, so if there's nothing there, it doesn't say, I don't know how to do anything. Go to review in Microsoft Word, show comments, and what it will do is it will give you little bits of advice, like how to put labels, some things about grammar, some things about this and that. But the main thing this does is show you how to cite different kinds of sources. So how to cite a book, how to cite an article, and the way Chicago Manual of Style works, which is the citation format you'll be using, not MLA, not APA, and neither the parenthetical version of Chicago. You will be making footnotes with also works cited citations, and they're a little bit different. But I've given you examples here. So, like for example, this. Here's an example of a television episode. Here's how to do, if you're referencing a TV episode for some reason. Here's the footnote and what that looks like, and then we go to the works cited page. Here's how it looks as a works cited citation. Notice the hanging indentation, single spaced in this aspect. In the body, you're still going to do 12-point times New Roman double spaced. How to do lengthy quotations. You should probably avoid these, but if you do them, how to do them. This is something I talked about on the third. Basically, this is advice for how to fill the stuff in terms of especially citations and references. That's the function of this piece. And so, like I said, here's the works cited page. You'll notice I think there's like 9 or 10, yeah, here's 10 citations. You probably won't have this many. I have no set length. If you have 0, there's a problem because you're getting your information from somewhere. I think I'll just say on average you should probably have 2 to 5 citations, maybe. I think bare minimum is 1. You should probably have 2 or 3, including the textbook or textbooks for the course. And then throughout here, there's little bits of advice like don't use MLA citations. So if you have something like this where it's in parentheses and you have last name, page number, you're doing it wrong. Things about rhetoric, all kinds of stuff like that is throughout this piece. So that is the purpose of the paper formatting exemplar. Then you have 2 versions of the case study report and analysis. You have a PDF version that you can kind of just look at, and you have a Word document that you can really just kind of fill in. So if we take a look at that, and I think I already have that up, so I download the Word document, bam, here it is. I'm going to enable editing here. Really, what you have here, if you, this is the Microsoft Word version. Here it is. It's 3 pages. Okay, there you see, en deux, trois. Really, your assignment that's due on the 24th is simply out every single one of these questions. There are 10 questions on part 1, 5 questions on part 2. Your job is to fill it in. That's it. Period. Now, what I want you to do also is supplement that with citations. So the first part, which has more questions, but will actually probably take less time, is to just fill the stuff in. So part 1 is the report. It's not analytical. It just asks you for data. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use a completely ridiculous fictional example. We're doing the destruction of Alderaan by the Death Star in Star Wars. Name of the case study or incident: destruction of Alderaan. Location: Alderaan. Date of case study incident: minutes before the Battle of Yavin 4. Parties: Empire, Galactic Rebellion, all this kind of stuff. Maybe, I don't know, regional governors. There's all kinds of things. Describe the incident. Well, the Death Star blows up Alderaan, and it's a great disturbance in the Force. Ethical problems: a bunch of people are dead. Meta-ethical problems: should they have done this? Was this for the greater good? Does this scout out more does it prevent further kinds of rebellion against the Galactic Empire? Any real-life consequences? Well, no, because this is a fictional occurrence. Specify any institutional agency response to the incident or the event. Is there going to be some sort of, I don't know, galactic imperial PR firm that says, well, the Alderaanians were terrorists all along? And 10, list any relevant contextual features elements. Well, this happens in concomitance with the destruction of the Imperial Senate, which has been disbanded by Emperor Palpatine. This is all complete fictional nonsense. By the way, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's completely fine. The point is, I'm thinking of a completely ridiculous fictional example, and when you're doing these 10 items, you're just plugging in data. In fact, here what you have can just be a sentence or 2. However, if you do plug in a sentence or 2, you still need to make footnote citations, as you saw in the paper formatting exemplar. So part 1 here is when you see concrete elements, is the case study report. Part 2 is the hypothetical considerations. This is the analysis. It's half as many questions, but these questions are more analytical. So part 2 is, imagine that you're a member of a team of engineers working for the company or organization or agency that's considered the culpable party. This is your fault. You're responsible, if you think back to that responsibility lecture, uh, in the immediate aftermath, but not after the resolution. So things are still going on. Answer the following questions. What are the fundamental engineering problems involved herein? So this is the chance for you to use your engineering acuity. What's going on here in the most technical ways that you can put it? What's going on here? These 5 questions should be more than simply pithy sentences. Part 1 makes sense. Name of the incident. I'm not expecting a full essay here. What's going on? This, what are the fundamental engineering problems? Don't just say, oh, engineering stuff, chemicals. Nope. Oil spill. No, you need more than that. Go into as much detail in part 2 as you possibly can. What are the ethical problems here? So when it comes to right and wrong matters, give me as much information as possible here. Are there any particular ethical perspectives relative for your team's discussion? So the stuff that we did early on in the semester where we're talking about utilitarianism, deontology, virtue ethics, any of that stuff come up here? Are we talking about virtues? You notice that came up in the Code of Ethics a month and a half ago, or almost 2 months ago. Code of Ethics. Are we talking about virtues? Are we talking about duties? Are we talking about the greatest good for everyone? Are we talking about the greatest good for me? Are we talking about only my subjective reality? Are we talking about culture? Are we talking about religion? Are we talking about divine command? What are we talking about here? Any of that stuff come up here? If it does, bring it up. And all those different kinds of perspectives, not necessarily all of them, but they could all come up. For example, with the current virus stuff, I've seen, like when it comes to social distancing, some of it seems to be language that's utilitarian. It's about the greatest good. Like we should all stay at home because we want to prevent the virus from spreading, even if it's to people that I don't like. We want to prevent it from spreading. That's the greatest good for the greatest number. That's utilitarian language. I've also seen deontological language about it. It's a duty that we ought not prevent. We ought not spread this virus to people even unwittingly. I've seen virtue about it, like it's virtuous for us to stay at home and do our best. I've seen ethical egoism about it. It's in my self-interest to stay at home, or if I'm going to go out, to wear a mask and practice social distancing. Subjectivism. I've seen that attitude. I don't care if people have the virus or not. We need to get the economy going because I need to do what's best for me because I think I should be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want. Cultural relativism. The culture says, hey, we need to get... I saw protests today. I think it was in Wisconsin. Somewhere Midwest. Might have been Wisconsin. Might have been Michigan. Oh, it's escaping me right now. Where there were people saying, no, we should need to open back for business. For me. This is bad for me. There's that. There's also people saying, hey, like, this is great that things are closed right now. I'm a server, and I've been there. I've waited tables for many years, and I know what it's like to be in the service industry and not making money because you don't have tables to wait on. It's awful. Those people saying, well, it's great that we're helping everybody out with health, but I can't pay my bills right now. All that. I've seen divine command on this, well, or at least takes on divine command, like, well, God's going to work it out. God's doing this because he's punishing us for this behavior. There's a pastor I think past week in Atlanta who defied stay-at-home orders by Governor Kemp, at least in Georgia, saying that, you should go to church. And there were pastors, parishioners, and congregants that died in church this past week because of coronavirus because they went to church. I'm not saying that's bad per se. It might be bad right now. The point is that I'm saying is here we are talking about the situation, and we can look at it in meta-ethical structures and critique it in that way. That's what this question is doing. And I think unfortunately, these circumstances are good in this way, in that it allows us to be able to think about these things front and center. Good only in that sense, in that here's where you can apply this stuff. This is not stuff that's just, I can think of it as my mother would say, highfalutin nonsense. It's not just something above and beyond or completely abstract. Here is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, on ethics. These things really matter. How we think about these things really matter. And so for the purpose of your paper, talking about meta-ethical perspectives, talking about duties, virtues, greatest good for the greatest number, that's what I'm asking you to do in this question. What are the meta-ethical perspectives that your team should discuss for unknown elements? I've had a lot of questions about this one. Like, how could I know what an unknown element is? Well, here's the biggest one that probably pops up. Investigation happens. People are asking questions. Hey, people aren't answering questions in our inquiry. So you go into an investigation, everybody shuts up. Something you might want to know in an engineering ethics disaster is, well, did people have to sign non-disclosure agreements before? This happens in other ethical matters very often where, hey, for example, with aspects of, say, like the Me Too movement, or people talking about sexual harassment. Hey, if you were sexually harassed 20 years ago, why didn't you talk about it 20 years ago? Why are you bringing it up now? Well, some people had to, if they were even when they were getting hired, had to sign non-disclosure agreements where they said, we're not going to talk about this, or we have to suffer particular consequences. And sometimes the particular consequences are so severe that people aren't willing to do them. And that's not a new phenomenon. For example, I can think of in the early 20th century, it has nothing to do with sexual harassment, earlier 20th century, 20th century conservative theologian, Gerhardus Voss, worked at Princeton University, hardcore Christian conservative. And when Princeton was becoming a fairly liberal school, he stayed with Princeton because he didn't want to lose his pension. Now, it's not a non-disclosure agreement, but when Princeton was doing things that he thought were, these are kind of sketchy liberal things that Princeton was doing in the middle 1930s, he stuck with Princeton University because he didn't want to lose his pension. Pensions are things that we had before 401ks that were a lot more awesome than 401ks because they weren't contingent on the market, but that's another story. So what are things that you might need to search in the background, like why might people act in certain ways? You might learn that you might learn about nepotism, like, oh, why was this person covering up for someone else? Oh, it turns out they were siblings, or they were family, or they were married, or someone had hired someone else because there was a familiar relationship there. Okay, and that's called in certain contexts nepotism, favoritism, those kinds of things. Those are things that you might not know on the surface that might change the way that you view things when you zoom in a little bit farther. And then finally, what are the potential consequences, impact, concerns of your team's analysis to address the problems raised in the incident? So what you are doing to kind of solve the problem here in the context of your team, in the context of what you're doing, is again here at the beginning of part 2. Like you're part of a team trying to deal with this, not necessarily PR, but you're trying to deal with it. Your own intervention, is it going to be problematic? Can PR be problematic? Yeah, but how so? So that's something for you to consider here. So again, I want to make clear that these first 10 questions are meant to be short. The latter 5 questions, I want you to be I want you to be as lengthy as possible. So I have, if you go here back to the case study report and analysis, the content here, you've also got a meh example and a good example. Now, these original examples that I had up here had been from previous versions of the course where they had more work to do. I'm actually wanting to do a little less work. Now, what they had to do was do the report analysis and then have another analysis that was more of an essay format. I'm not asking you to do that because I think that's more work in this environment. So what I want you to do, if you click on the good example now, what you'll get is this. So here's the good example. So here's the first 10 questions. What this person did was on the Texas City refinery explosion. Look at these first 10 questions. Name, bam, name. Location, location. Date, date. Parties, all the parties involved. Describe the event in brief. Well, there it is. It's a little bit longer. That might be a headline. Ethical problems, bam. Look, 3 lines. Meta-ethical problems. Oh, utilitarianism. Deontology. That stuff is there. Real-life consequences. Very short, very, very specific. And you'll notice here that all the content is there, and really the way that I did this, the footnotes are not showing up just right, but they should be. We'll see that more in the second half, and that's because I rectified this version. We'll see it better in the second half. Relevant contextual features, bam, here it is. Now, part 2. Notice how these are lengthier responses here. What are the fundamental engineering problems? Well, here's a full description of the engineering aspects, and you'll notice it goes on here for about a page and a half, 2 pages. And here's where the footnotes are. So where this data is being cited, there's a footnote. There it is down here, BP Texas explosion. That footnote should be more robust, but that's what it is here. That's why this still made an A, but it's not 100% in terms of its footnotes. And here is the actual citation in the works cited page. If you have questions about citations, you can send them to me. Some of you have already been doing that. That's great. Some of you have been sending me stuff about Wikipedia. Remember, don't use Wikipedia itself. In fact, I'm going to show you how to do that. So if I go to what we were just dealing with there, okay, that was the BP Texas City explosion. If I go to Wikipedia, if Wikipedia doesn't sue me for doing this in this video, and I go to BP Texas explosion, let's see if anyone comes up. Texas City refinery explosion. Here's the Wikipedia page. Now, if you do quote this for some reason, which you shouldn't, quote it. But my favorite thing about Wikipedia, and something that should be used, and actually should be celebrated more, is all this stuff. It's all crap. Academically speaking, this is all crap because people can come in and edit this. But what you'll see almost on any Wikipedia page is blah, 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 all the way near here at the bottom, references. Click on that. Here, right here, all this stuff. Here's a Wikipedia's footnotes. Here are 36 of their sources, and these are often legit. If you'll permit me that. Here from the Department of Energy, from some journal website, from BP.com. So like if we open these things up, here's something. Oh, BP says, I'm sorry, we can't find that page. That's not surprising. But if we can go to the Department of Energy's website, here they have stuff on refineries right here that were important for this article. Sometimes they have journal pieces. Of course, that can't be found. That's not surprising to me. So some of this stuff has not been updated, but like here's something from CBS: daughter of BP victim fights and wins. Use the bibliography here of Wikipedia can get you into a lot of places. Here's another one from csb.gov. Now that's a government website. Look, U.S. chemical safety work includes organizational and safety deficiencies at all levels of the BP Corporation caused March 2005 Texas City disaster that killed 15, injured 180. Government website. What's the CSB? Government organization. This is not some conspiracy website. Those might be here too, but you can actually see where these things are coming from. They also usually Wikipedia has external links that will also bring you to more information as well. Use this stuff, but if you quote it or cite it, go to this. Like here's one that's not particularly scholarly. It looks like it's going to be Galveston News. There you go. Galveston County, the Daily News. That's south of Houston, Texas. Oh, Texas is the oldest newspaper. Whew. There you go. March 23rd, 2015. BP explosions also a fixture in county courts. Here's content. All right. So next thing I want to do is talk about one more thing in terms of getting information. So hopefully it's clear to you that I want you to use good sources for, especially you should be using good sources in the first half, and also using footnote citations like they look in the formatting exemplar. But the second half, the hypothetical considerations, are what should be more robust. So, how to do citations and what kind of stuff to look for. So here's the next thing. You'll notice I also have here Chicago Manual Style Chapter 14 is a link. Now, if you go there right now off campus, it will, in fact, let's do it. It'll probably tell you, oh, you need to log in. So this is the Chicago Manual Style Chapter 14. Probably here it'll tell you, hey, you need to log in, dumbass. And that won't be really helpful to you. So what I want you to do instead is go to USC Aiken's library homepage. And if you do that, That's in fact, look at if you go to the Greg Granville Library, it'll look like this, and you go to the A to Z list, then go to C. Go to the Chicago manual style, because that is and you'll notice there's a little lock next to it. And then what you'll do with that is, here it's going to take me straight there. Now I'm logged in. You'll notice right here it says University of South Carolina, Aiken. If you do that from here, you click on this, it'll probably have you do a little login proxy page. I'm not going to do that on here because it's going to have me put in my name and password and stuff. But it'll have you do that here. If you try and do it, if you try and go around it, if you go straight to the Chicago manual style, if you Google it, it probably won't work. And what this is really everything about Chicago manual style. So everything from how to use grammar, how to do punctuation. Sometimes we haven't had a previous paper in this class. Sometimes people are confused, like when I make a quote, like where does the period go? Does it go in the quotation marks? Does it go on the outside? How do I do parentheses? How do I do things like that? Chicago manual style has things like if you use a number fewer than 10, you actually write out the word. So if you use the word 8, you don't write out the numeral 8, you write out the word 8. But if you use a number higher than 10, like 11, you type in 1, not the word 11. That's under numbers. Probably not going to be an issue here. It might be when you're talking about like data sets, like we were talking about, 30,000 gallons of oil spills out into the ocean. Well, do I type out 30,000? Do I write out the words 30,000? Chicago manual style, you're going to write 30,000. All that kind of stuff is here. So look, numbers. Let's click on that. Here you go. Here's how to do it. Non-technical context, Chicago advises spelling out whole numbers from 0 through 100 and certain round multiples when non-technical context. Millions, how to do all this stuff. It's all right here. When you're talking about money, how to write it out, it's all there. The main thing that I want you to know is how to do notes and bibliography. So this is section 14. Every kind of thing you could possibly imagine. How to do things with one author. No authors are listed because it came off the internet. Someone's using a pseudonym. Yo, what's up? I'm Big Daddy T, and I've got a blog. Here's how you cite that. Everything. Multi-volume works, things that came from multi-volumes, various series, other aspects, how to put everything in. It's all here. How to use journals, magazines, newspapers, reviews, reference works, artworks, scriptural references. If for some reason you're using something from the Bible, how to do that is here. I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know, from Job, the Lord give, and the Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Sure, all right. Good things, that is to say, good things happen, bad things happen. God's still awesome. That's the words of Job, not me. You might be doing that. How to reference versions of the Bible, because some people will just say KJV, King James. How to do that is here. Other sacred works. If for some reason you bring up the Bhagavad Gita and you're talking about, Arjuna not fulfilling his dharma, and the Bhagavad Gita out of the Mahabharata. Sure, that's here. You want to talk about Muhammad saying certain things in a hadith, you can bring that up here. That's totally fine. All the possible things you could really possibly think of. Constitutions. You want to talk about the Constitution of Poland for some reason? Sure, here. Article 2, Section 1, United States Constitution, talking about the powers of the president. How to cite that? Here. Canada. You're talking about laws. All right, this bill states this. The legal reasoning could come up in talking about stuff. If it comes up, it's here. Now, these are the guidelines and the parameters here. I don't want you to worry. I want you to use this as a reference. I'll go ahead and tell you, if your citations are really off base, I'm going to take off some points, but you're not going to fail the assignment for it not being 100% accurate. So I want to try and allay some of those fears right now, because we don't have the ability to ask things in class. Furthermore, let me go ahead and say here, if you want to meet up and you have some questions, you want to meet up in like a Zoom meeting or Skype or FaceTime or whatever, you want to meet up and talk about some things, totally down for that. Please email me, thomasb@usca. Let me know. I want to help you in any way that I can and walk you through these things. Um, that being said, please don't just, oh, he said everything's fine. I can do whatever. If your paper's shit, it's going to have a shitty grade. I'll tell you that now. But I want to be as accommodating as possible. Like, do your best in terms of doing the assignment, filling everything in that you can, responding to everything as in a fully orbed way as you can. But please don't think like, oh, you didn't put a period in this particular subsection of your citation, and therefore you're going to make an F. Not going to happen. Basically, here's the deal. You do this assignment, like you turn it in, and you've answered all 15 of the questions, you've passed this assignment, at least. Are you, like, everything's there and it's terrible, I'm giving you a 60% D. Okay? If you turn nothing, really, the only way to fail this assignment is by not turning anything in. But to do well on it is to get higher echelons of grades, is to simply do more and more on it. So if your citations are fully orbed, if your reasoning in the second half is robust, you're good. And like I said, there's still a little bit of time before this paper's due. So if you have further questions, some of you have been asking really great questions already in private, and I want to say those things are good. Hopefully this is also, some people you have asked private questions. Some of your private questions hopefully have been addressed here in a public way that's appropriate. Because I think if one person's asking a question, someone else is probably thinking it, but is maybe too nervous or anxious to ask it. Now, it's like I said, the paper's due the 24th. That's the end of day the 24th. So what that means is at midnight, the end of day on April 24th, which is, excuse me, that is the end of day Friday of next week, the 24th. So in other words, 25th, it's late. Now listen, if I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and your paper's not in yet, you're good. Okay? So yeah, April 24th is when I want it in. If it comes in the wee hours of the 25th, we're still good. I'm not taking any points off. All right. Sometimes things happen. People put things off to the last minute. Sometimes I even know this. I say this as a professor. Sometimes I write my own conference papers under the pressure of knowing this is due really, really soon. So some people say, "Oh no, you have a paper due. You should start on months in advance." Parts of it, sure, but I understand if you're doing the final product at the end. Granted, I know right now is a stressful time too, so I don't want you to stress about this too much. Hopefully you have a sense of what the assignment is, how to fulfill the parameters, and if you have any questions, email right now. The emails are coming in. I'm getting bombarded with emails. I'm getting right now probably somewhere between 50 and 100 emails a day because I teach 6 classes, so I'm getting kind of bombarded, and that has been a slow process. If you want to get together, like some of you, many people, we can organize how to do it, like a Zoom meeting, Skype, FaceTime, get together to talk about stuff. I'm totally down for that. So hopefully this helps you understand the assignment more fully, what I'm looking for, how to make references, and also how to keep on going with the class in general. There will also be final exam material coming out soon. The final exam is going to work exactly like the midterm, except it's going to be all online. So whereas on the midterm you had to fill out a blue book, it's going to be the exact same thing, just online. What's going to happen is that our exam is due May 4th. What I'm going to do is a week before, May 27th, I'm going to come up with some questions. There'll be fewer questions than last time because it's going to be just the stuff that really we've done since spring breaks. Probably on James and Clifford, stuff related to our incident reports and case study analyses and reports. That stuff will be out on the 27th of April. That's in 11 days, and it will be due May 4th. All online. So it'll probably be stuff where, like I said, the questions will come out beforehand, a week before the 27th, and you'll turn that stuff in, and that will be the final assignment for this class. So again, that'll come out the 27th of April, be due May 4th. May the 4th be with you. That's when that will be due, and those will be the only two assignments left for this class. Because of the fact that we've been doing stuff at home for the second half, the grades. Let's go ahead and put this up. Let's just say usually when I do one of these in-person classes, now I teach online classes too, but in-person classes I usually have a discussion grade where that's a mitigating factor. That mitigating factor has completely been supplanted here because the dynamic that we would have normally had has been unfortunately stolen from us due to circumstance. So anything that I would have done there, I'll just say here, my intention is to be much more gracious than I would be in other contexts. Now, some people would say, "Oh, that makes things a lot easier." Well, yeah, it should. Things should be easier on you right now, because a lot of what we're dealing with is just straight up bullshit. And I don't mind saying that publicly here. We're just all dealing with a lot, and I don't think you should have to deal with extra nonsense. Does that make things easier? Maybe, but I also think it's important. Like for me, this is an ethics class. I think it's ethically important to be sympathetic to other people as they're going through stuff. Some of you may not be going through stuff that's as severe as others, but I think here's that Kantian principle of trying to be, act only on that subjective maxim that you can at the same time will that should become a universal law. I don't agree with a lot in Kant, but I think there's something there that, hey, try to do stuff that's best treat everyone dignity, not just as a means. I'm not just trying to say, boy, you're just another cog in my class list. Like, all of you are important to me, and I know all of you are human beings living lives. You're all ends in yourselves, and so I don't want to use you as just merely a means, something that I click off at the end of the semester. I hope you're all doing well. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help facilitate your experience in here, but I don't want you to overly worry about what we're doing in here. Hopefully the assignments have been explained clearly, but like I said, any other questions, thomasb.usca.edu. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.